Alright, should be videotaping and such. Videotaping? No. Video something or other. Streaming, yes, I guess that's the whatever. Alright, vernacular. So, speaking of vernacular, so we'll talk a little bit about the word inertia. Right? So apparently this is a thing to people. And there's really no thing here. Nothing resists being moved. Nothing says, I want to stay where I am. It just requires that you give it enough energy to move it. So if you want to move something, you have to give it enough energy. So I could be sliding something across the surface, and it won't go across the surface unless I push it hard enough to get it to go across the surface. If I don't push it hard enough, it's not going anywhere. But it's not resisting any more than, like I said, a poor person resists being rich. Even with the money in their hand, they'll say, hey, I'm rich. Cool. They're not resisting. Anyway, just so annoying. So it's not a real concept, is the point. Not even close to a real concept. All right, now I don't see. Be some kind of catch here. Let me try this again. I did pop out the chat. I really thought I did do that. I must have did something else. I guess I'll have to see what else I did. Anyway, I still don't see it. Interesting. Alright, so what do I do about that? Yeah, it's not on my list. Shit. Okay, gotta think. How do I fix that? I could just do this, and then I could hit this again, and try again. See if it's there. There it is. Okay, so that worked. Alright, so here's the chat thing. I don't know. Why is it, why do they have the guidelines so far down? I don't know. Try this. Live chat, they didn't fix it either. Don't know. Maybe I'll say I don't care. Yeah, that's maybe what I'll do. 'Cause I don't think the chat's going to pop up in that top part. Alright, so we'll just put it down here, and then it can't be in the way too much, I guess. Yeah, that seems okay. Alright, so the Ian Gosling guy has, instead of making videos or doing as I suggested, making your physics argument, explaining how things work, he's just sent an email with a link, which hard to understand exactly that either, but whatever, to a video I've already seen. I've seen a few videos by this guy, not terrible, but not very profound in any way. Kind of kid science, I have to say, but, that's fine. This frankly wasn't worth even commenting on it because it's conceptually so obvious and simple. So the simple argument is if you're rotating something, you're going to rotate it. If the mass is here, it moves a very short distance. If the mass is here, it has to move a very long distance. So you can understand that this much movement is a little bit of movement here, it's a lot of movement here. So it's just momentum. So what you're saying basically is if you're going to move the stick a certain amount and you have weight here, that weight's going to have to absorb. You're going to have to put a lot of energy in to get it to move because it's a lot of weight. And if you put the weight here, you don't have to put much energy in, but you're only moving it at a tiny distance at a tiny velocity. And that's all it is. It's regular momentum. And the lever sort of shows it in the sense that it gives you the diagram. It gives you the rule. Twice the distance and the same mass, it's going to take you twice the energy because you have now basically got to move it twice the distance. So even their distance rules fit in that case, and it's going to be going twice the speed. So it's twice the distance and twice the speed on the lever, where in gravity itself, free falling, it's 4 times the distance. And you can sort of understand the distinction is that it's not going to be the same time, for some of this stuff, because the fact is you're absorbing the gravitational energy and kind of slowing down the process of moving something, like going down a ramp. It takes longer for it to fall going down the ramp. Okay. Because you're putting some of the energy into the ramp besides letting the object fall. So, so that's probably enough of a preliminary statement, a preface. So we'll just move this to a more centered position, I suppose. We'll play some of this, and then we'll read some comments, and then maybe we'll go to another one of these videos on this idea of inertia. And again, there's no inertia. There's no concept that certain objects are resisting moving. It's just about mass. If it's really light, it's easy to move, doesn't take much force. If it's heavy, it's hard to move because you need a lot of force to go into it to move it. I mean, it's really not complicated, and there's no special other force. Just like friction isn't a force. It's you giving your force away. Friction is losing your energy to other objects. You contact them, what you have blends with what they have, and if there's a differential where you had something, you're going to give it to them, and if they had something, they're going to give it to you. It's like you have friction with a tornado, but you don't think of it as the tornado's giving me its energy. But that's what's happening.
Today we're going to look at some demonstrations involving the concept of rotational inertia. Now, first of all, let's review the concept of inertia. Inertia is a property that we associate with an object that deals with a resistance to a change in its state of motion. That particular property is the mass of the object. Now, rotational inertia...
Right, so we just said it's just the mass of the object. That's all that matters. And it's really simple rules about distance from the center of the rotation. So there's no squared function. There's no assumptions about anything called energy. So yes, if you want to say, you want to make up your fake rule that the velocity is squared, you can make up a fake notion. But the truth is that momentum perfectly explains why things move, the way things move, and the reason why something rotates slower when there's more mass on the outside, because it takes more energy to cause the movement, because it's moving more distance.
Property that deals with the resistance of an object,
more velocity,
to a change in a state of rotational motion. That does depend upon the mass of the object, but it depends upon something else as well, and we're going to find out by looking at some demonstrations. Now,
so there's no other thing. There's just the mass, and now you're going to apply a velocity. And the rule is, if it's a lot of mass, then it's going to be a small velocity. If there's less mass, it's going to be a high velocity, because it's just about the momentum. You're just transferring momentum.
the first one
The force is momentum. Newton said that.
is one that you probably played around with before, and that's balancing a pole on your fingers. It's actually fairly easy to do this. You just make small corrections with your hand.
Right, so you're making small corrections, and obviously it takes more energy to make any corrections in the top of the stick. So it's the same argument as the lever again. You're just using the stick as leverage. Big movement with your hand, small movement at the top, or vice versa, big movement at the top, small movement of your hand.
And you can keep the pole balanced. Now it stays balanced because of something else that we learned in a previous demonstration, and that is that by moving my fingers, I'm keeping the center mass of the pole directly over the point of support. As long as I do that, it's not going to fall.
Right, so now we're back to aligning your weights in line with the center of gravity of the pole, and it sort of makes an air lever. So like I said, he could do this both ways. He could make the lever work, balancing across a fake center of mass. A virtual one in space, so to speak. You don't need a fulcrum, so to speak.
All right, now let's make it even easier. I'm going to do that by putting a clamp near one end of the pole. This will increase the mass of the pole quite a bit, but it will do something else that we're going to see. Now here's a question. Will it be easier to balance this at the weighted end or close to the weighted end, or with the weighted end far from the point of support? Well, let's try it both ways. With the weight close to the point of support, or the axis of rotation, I can balance.
So it's very little energy to move the piece of mass, so it moves easily because it's moving small distances, small velocities.
But I have to make very big movements with my hand in order to do that. That's because the pole is moving very quickly, and so I have to respond very quickly. It's a lot easier if I do it this way. I don't have to be motion.
So now the thing up top needs a lot of energy to move very far because it's, leverage, velocity. And so he can do the movements at the bottom and control the weight at the top with very small movements. So a big movement at the bottom, small movement at the top. So he can do large corrections with his hand. Okay, he doesn't have to use tiny corrections. Where if the weight's the other way around, it's tiny corrections cause big changes.
That I make with my hand to keep it balanced are much slower, and that's because the pole has a tendency to rotate much slower. Why is that? It's because the rotational inertia of the pole is greater when I balance it like this than when I balance it like this. Now the mass hasn't changed.
Yes, it can swing really easy because there's no mass at the top and a lot of mass on the fulcrum.
What has changed is where the mass is. As it turns out, the further the mass is distributed from the axis of rotation, the greater the rotational inertia that it has, and therefore...
So it's not any rotational inertia, it's just momentum. The greater momentum it has. So the weight up top, the velocity is higher, more weight, it's just more momentum, period. It takes more energy, okay, and gravity's providing the energy.
The greater the resistance to a change in a state of rotational motion. Let's look at another example of that. This one is sort of similar to what you may have seen some circus performers do, and that is balancing stacks of plates on a long pole. Now I'm not going to try that, but I'm going to balance something on this platform. First of all, you can see that it's fairly easy to balance even as it is, but it should be even easier if I put extra mass far from the point where I'm supporting it. So I'm going to put these sawed-off soda pop bottles filled with water on the top and balance it on my fingers. And I can just stand here, and this is fairly easy to do. Now my cameraman is pretty nervous right now because he's wondering if I'm going to drop this on his camera, but actually I'm just exaggerating. I can do pretty much with this what I want to do. I just have to be careful when I bring it back down again, because that's the point where I'm most likely to tip the thing over and drop it.
Right, because he's now put his hand closer to the center of mass.
That's
So
because
he's
I
creating
moved the
a
point
fulcrum. When you put your hand on it, you're creating a fulcrum.
of support from far from the mass to close to the mass, where it's more difficult to keep it balanced. Some other examples.
So he sent this. I'm just saying, what? This doesn't disagree with momentum theory, okay? And it certainly doesn't disagree with somebody saying, well, you're just using word games. All you're saying is what we already know. It's more momentum. Momentum's a real thing. You got to have force, and you can understand that it takes more force, and where you're going to get the force from, blah, blah, blah.
Of this that you may have seen, or one example of this you may have seen, is another circus performer, the tightrope walker. The tightrope walker uses a long pole which extends way out. Now what this does is actually a couple of things. It increases his rotational inertia because there's a lot of mass far from him, and so...
Yes, and then I guess the other thing, let's see what the other argument would be, but clearly the mass far from him is just, again, it's just tiny movements require big movements of a lot of weight on the ends, and where's that energy going to come from?
When he makes, in order to correct any slight motions one way or the other, it's fairly easy to do because with the greater rotational inertia, he tends not to rotate very quickly. The other thing it does relates to something that we've studied before, and that is the position of the center of mass. You probably noticed that these poles are very long and they droop way down on the ends. As a result, they pull the center of mass of the man and the pole downward, and you know from what we learned before that by bringing down the center of mass, that increases the stability of the system.
Right. So that's part of the argument about how the balance works. So the balance is bringing the center of mass down when you have the weights hanging, and so therefore it's I don't know how exactly that helps you with a fulcrum, but I guess it would mean it changes how much pressure is on the fulcrum because you're below the actual center of the lever. The center mass is below the lever. Or above in the other case. Alright, so did that really help in any way? Did that show how I have to believe that it's harder to push the 1/2 mass twice the velocity? So that's Ian's argument. Somehow it's harder to move a 1/2 mass at twice the velocity. That's his argument. And why should I? Did this demonstration show that? No. Is there any evidence that's true? Just like they're going 4 times the fuel to go twice as fast. Is there any evidence? No. So he's just asserting that somehow it's harder to push a 1/2 mass twice the velocity. Somehow the 1/2 mass going twice the velocity provides some sort of resistance, some sort of extra resistance. And he hasn't explained what's the theory for that extra resistance. It's just, frankly, the same momentum. Why does it require anything other than twice the force if it's twice the momentum? Alright, so now we'll go to the ragged, stupid, moronic comments that, frankly, just bolster my case that these people can't compose better arguments than this crap. So it just sort of just proves that, man, they're really lame. I mean, they really don't have any argument to make because they have to resort to this crap. It's crap. I don't think there's any. Yeah, the chat would show up above mine, right? I don't think it would show up below. Yeah, no, it would show up above. Okay. Alright. Just to clarify, in both Mindless Marbles and ING's videos, the larger massed object moved faster. So that's just a lie. So I don't know why they bother lying, but that's what they do. They can't do any better. So clearly in the Ian video, he wasn't doing the full rotation. He was just going from something like 80 degrees to 0. And it was clear that the 2-mass object moved slower because there was more energy or bounce in the other lighter object. And that's why it didn't bounce very high. It's because it was moving too slow to generate any momentum. And so it wasn't getting as much energy from the gravitational fall because there was too much friction. So it was clear in that case. So it's just bullshit to say it was going faster. It obviously wasn't going faster because it had less momentum. Alright. Your excuses about, in the other video with Mindless Marbles, again, I already explained that the difference there is that he's using a distance from the center of the fulcrum. He has a weight, essentially a string, pulling on a pulley at a distance from the fulcrum. And that's what's causing the differential, is because when one side swings, the total mass on one side of the lever is different than when the other side is swinging down, being pulled down. The weight changes, and so it's not a 2-to-1 relationship between the weights anymore, and which is an equal relationship. The half mass twice the distance is the same weight. Then when you put a pulling device on it, you're just establishing that you're placing another weight on one side of the lever. So clearly it's not a balanced lever anymore, it's a completely imbalanced lever. And the trick is the string just keeps the imbalance on just one side of the lever. Alright. Your excuses about friction is the opposite of what is shown. So again, I qualified my point about friction. In the case of the ING video, clearly it was friction that was slowing the 2-mass down. And in the Mindless Marbles video, clearly the distinction is where you're pulling, where you're pushing on the lever is always on the same side, and it's obviously as the thing rotates, that means it's switching the imbalance from the 1-mass 2 distances side, and then doing the same thing. So in one case there's a total of 3 masses And in the other case, there's a total of 4. All right. What ChatGPT says about cranks like yourself. So how interesting. I mean, it really is just so funny that they would sit there and, people would think that this chat bot can actually create wisdom that it didn't read somewhere, that it's actually going to generate wisdom by reading all the crap and synthesizing it, that somehow it's going to know the right answer when all it can do is come up with some average answer. All right. The phenomenon you describe of individuals dismissing established scientific concepts and developing their own pet theories. So you think the chatbot understands what pet theory means? Oh, amazing. And so it's not a pet theory for them, right? So they can believe in entanglement, and they can believe in even kinetic energy, even though there's no physical evidence, and we can't call that a pet theory, right? Dark matter, they can make up anything they want, and it's okay as long as they're the majority. So when the majority has a wacky theory that's completely unevidenced, we can't call it a pet theory. Well, of course we can. The bot should know, if it understood what the concept was, that is a theory without evidence, okay, then it would know, yes, conventional physics can also be guilty of pet theories. It's generally called religion, where they believe something without evidence, based on some kind of faith. Okay, is not unique in physics. It can be observed in many fields. So again, it can be observed in life that there are people who are just propagandizing and saying something when they don't have any evidence, and they haven't followed the scientific method, and they haven't applied scrutiny, and they haven't looked for alternative explanations, and they're just believing it because they have an agenda. Okay, and it's often driven by a combination of factors including ego, religion, they should put in here somewhere, a desire for recognition, and a lack of understanding or appreciation of the scientific method. So the irony of it, what is the scientific method? Faith. I mean, that's the scientific method that's being applied. I mean, clearly all of this crap, even the existence of quarks, is pretty much just based on faith, okay? Because they haven't really tried to explain the accelerator experiments with any other theory or applying any other reasoning. Just like the two-slit experiment, it's a big lie to say, oh, it's decisive evidence of wave functions, when their own analysis, that is, let's compare it to water, doesn't work. If you actually do the comparison, it fails to work in most all cases, except a very, one where you've changed the rules substantially. If you made infinitesimally small slits in water, it's not going to work. It's not going to give you the same pattern, certainly, that you get in light. So even in their special case, they don't actually get the right answer. The scientific method is a rigorous approach. So, where did the bot get that piece of information from? Did it go investigate and see if they rigorously defined any of these realities? Dark matter, expanding space, any of this crap was rigorous? Yeah, no, I'm afraid not. Approach to investigating the natural world that involves observation, hypothesis, testing. Now that's the big one, right? There's no testing here. They dropped round things into clay, and they rolled things across the surface without even thinking about the fact that maybe friction isn't totally fair. And empirical evidence, whatever the empirical evidence is. Is there such a thing? I don't think there's. I think that's just gibberish. Does chatbot know that empirical evidence doesn't mean anything? I mean, it's just an undefinable pile of mush. All right. It is designed to minimize bias and subjectivity, and to ensure that scientific findings are based on objective evidence and reproducible results. So do we have any of those? Did they reproduce the Eddington experiment with superior technology in the last 100 years? No. Did they even attempt it with superior technology? No. Big joke, really. I mean, even the other experiments they didn't use superior equipment, which is really a joke, right? With all those giant telescopes we have, none of those have been, put to the task. It's always some, rigged experiment. However, some individuals may reject the scientific method. Well, they might question whether anybody pays any attention to it, because apparently the scientists really don't. They just say it. They don't really do it. Or feel they are above it. Yes, clearly they think they don't have to produce evidence. All right. Leading them to develop their own theories based on personal belief or intuition rather than empirical evidence. So he used empirical evidence twice when it doesn't mean anything. There's no emperor. Anyway, in the case of physics, it is important to remember that the concepts of general relativity and other established scientific theories are the result of decades or even centuries of rigorous study, but not analysis or scrutiny and testing by some of the brightest minds in the field. So again, we're saying, where's the testing for 1/2 mv squared? 300 years to put it to a test. Where did you put it to a test? The theory that light is bent twice as much by gravity. Where was this rigorously tested? Sorry, no sale. Dismissing these concepts out of hand. Well, I don't think I'm doing it out of hand. I'm doing it based on 10 years of model analysis, and the fact is other models work better. Are developing alternative theories without the same level of scientific rigor. Well, mine has more rigor in the sense it actually has to work using some kind of real concept instead of invisible, magical, squared velocities and space creation, expanding space creation, ESP particles. I mean, your physics is a joke in the sense that it relies on magic all over the place. It is unlikely to lead to valid scientific advances. So that will be debunked eventually as truth by the fact that, oh shit, it's going to have to be realized that they've been preaching a bunch of crap that wasn't well evidenced and wasn't well tested and wasn't any of those things and was in fact crap. Photons aren't waves, okay? Electrons certainly aren't waves, and you really are so wrong-tracked. That being said, it's important to maintain an open mind and encourage scientific curiosity and exploration, even if it involves challenging established ideas. So where do they do any of that? Nowhere. It's the most proven theory in the history of mankind. However, any new theories or ideas should be subjected to some rigorous testing. So again, the rigorous testing keeps coming up. I'm all for it. They're all against it. They test my theory, but we can't test theirs. That's the simple statement they're making. I have to produce evidence. They don't have to produce evidence. So I can keep saying, well, where's the 4 times the fuel to go twice as fast experiment? They don't have to produce it. They don't have to. But I do. Okay. And evaluation is established theories and should be supported by empirical evidence. There it is again, rather than personal belief or intuition. Obviously, any theory should be supported by evidence. And that's the whole argument. That's the standard you judge. So if there's some nutter saying he's made a free energy device, the obvious thing he has to do is just produce the proof. Show us the evidence. What's the big deal? So I put a lever on my porch and I oscillated it and I showed that, hey, look, there's twice the momentum moving over here. It's real masses moving real velocities. So it's obviously real energy. And the fact is, if I was to extract the energy by letting the thing hit something, I have more energy kinetic energy, technically, on one side of the lever than on the other side. How does that make any sense? How can I have a 10-ton train going 5 miles an hour oscillating over here and only a 5-ton train going 10 miles an hour on one side and a 10-ton train going 5 miles an hour on the other side, and it's perfectly oscillating, and you tell me that, well, those two have, completely different kinetic energies. One of them can light 100 light bulbs and the other one can only light 50. Well, why don't you explain how that's possible? All right, very fairly, impressively put. Impressive to who? I'd argue impressive to somebody who's got a very common understanding of science. Yeah. All right, the phrase Dunning-Kruger gets thrown around a lot. Yes, by people who don't really want to make an argument. So they try to disengage from the argument, just insult the other side as being beneath, having to explain it to them. So by a lot of cowards use this phrase. And I know you are intimately familiar with it. Well, yes, I've had lame asses like you who can't produce any evidence throw it at me as if I'm guilty of something you aren't more guilty of. Okay, so that, so you really should know the word hypocrisy. So I should tell you that you should be familiar with that term because, yes, I've used it. You are such screaming hypocrites. You really are the poster child for the concept. You are the poster child for duplicitous hypocrite because you lie about what's actually taken place, and then you apply all this hypocrisy where the accusations you're thrown can be thrown right back at you. All right, someone who never achieved an understanding that they knew far less than they realized. And who does that? Frankly, I mean, who has anything useful to say if they're saying I don't understand? So obviously everybody understands a different amount about things. I mean, and you could argue that there could be people, mineralogists or somebody else, they can have different levels of understanding of all the different kinds of chemical configurations, all the different isotopes, blah, blah, blah. And so, but that doesn't guarantee that they're going to get right answers about questions asked about what's going to happen if, because maybe they just don't have any experience in that exact experiment. All right, someone perpetually stuck in the dumbass who thinks he's an expert phase. So it's a real phenomenon. There's a ton of people opining. I would argue that you're an example in the sense you think you have a qualified physics degree. You've done enough research that you looked up Leibniz and you looked up the young guy and you looked up all these different experiments, and you have enough knowledge to know everything was done right to specifications and they didn't make any mistakes. That when Thomas Young draws his two waves coming out, that somehow that actually creates the right pattern, when it doesn't. It fails to mathematically be consistent with the pattern formed by light. All right, anyway, your stubbornness and unwillingness to learn admit mistakes. So, and the argument is you're saying it's not a mistake that you haven't produced any evidence in 350 years for any of your claims. Okay. Essentially solidifies you in this position forever. Well, again, what you really think that's going to convince me I'm wrong? Because you say so with no authority or evidence. So you certainly you certainly aren't showing any knowledge of the subject. You can't make an argument on this subject. I mean, you can't make a physics argument, a scientific argument, and all you do is this slop. Okay. Private dumbass. There are no promotions in your future, sadly. Yes, and you'll be on the ash heap of the history, as it's stated. Okay, you'll be on the heap of worse than dumbass. Okay, propagandist, troll, fucktard, jerk. unethical, cheater, foul little pustule, a great insult to human dignity. That you have to resort to these lame, cheap, shitty arguments, but you can't make a real one. Okay. And why do you keep speaking on AI like you have the slightest clue what you are talking about? The subject's been around for, I don't know, a couple hundred years, at least. So, what kind of horseshit is this? What do you think the subject is? The subject is, do you really think, that an artificial intelligence can understand, that is, conceptually associate things correctly, understand when it can't in any way ever taste a feeling? So one of the most substantial things our brain does, which is project value, it can't do, except based on what we testify. And the fact is the bot has to hear all of you morons testifying to completely things other people testify to. And so there's no way it can know what the truth is. Alright, you readily admit you read essentially nothing. That's right, because I've read enough. Frankly, there's a point where you've read enough babble, little baby talk, and you've heard enough of those little baby words. And yeah, if I've got enough of those. Okay, and this couldn't be more obvious. In what way? I think I'm, again, for 2 years, I asked somebody, could you draw a lever and explain how it works? And they can't do it. So, obviously I've done okay in my reading because I can draw a lever and explain how it works, and they can't. Okay, you have chosen to continue to bathe in ignorance. And ignorance of what? Magical concepts. No, I'm not ignorant of them. I don't believe them. Okay? So if you think things are resisting moving, you're really fucking stupid. Alright. Just as expected, you are an insult to human intelligence. Like I said, the truth will be the truth. The outcome is going to be the outcome. And frankly, you have no reason to believe it is not you who have insulted human intelligence. And the very fact that in all this gibberish you type, you never make a physics argument, is making it so fucking obvious that who's the one that's anti-intelligent. I'm the one making physics arguments. You're the one making personal attacks. Duh. It's kind of obvious who doesn't have an argument. Let's see. Why do you keep lying and saying that the heavier setup in mindless marvels experiments move slower? I don't keep doing that. I corrected what I said quite clearly. Yesterday's video. Presented before you typed this mush. Alright, here's a quote from Mindless Marbles, stating this directly since you had a real trouble understanding this the last time. So that never happened. It has been 10 days since this response video to Draft Science is simply outright repeating his arguments. So again, he's time coding to the video. Which one? The one I made yesterday or the day before? Anyway, so it's probably the day before. Yes, the video's still up. And what I said is not entirely incorrect. You are changing the weight, and that's the difference. Alright, he says the heavier setup moves slower. The fact is the heavier setup does have to move slower because of where you're placing the weights. Okay, which is directly wrong. Okay, I pointed out this is wrong. So again, I said it in response to the Ian guy. And clearly in his experiment, the heavier setup had less energy. And I explained where the energy has to go, which is the friction, the contact. So all of these videos have been labeled contact friction. Clearly that's the subject, that if you're going to transfer energy to any location, to anything, it has to be through some sort of contact. So where are you providing any explanation of those pathways that enable things to move? Alright. and he doesn't care. So it's just more bullshit. I qualified what I said. All right. He is just repeating debunked falsehoods. So again, it's a lie. The worst part is that his fans only get to look at his side of things only. You don't present a side, okay? You just rig a fake notion that spinning things around is the same as pressing on a lever when they're not the same experiment at all. That's kind of obvious. Why don't you just do the experiment I suggested? Why are you doing some other experiment? Seems it's quite obvious you're the one evading the truth. Coming out with horribly wrong impression of things. So again, you're the one preaching the bad physics. Okay, the magical fake inertia, the fake energy, it's all fake. You have no evidence that it exists. It's a fable. You're making it up. Okay. You really have no clue just how wrong you are, do you? Quite obviously, I have no clue that I'm wrong because I have no evidence to think I'm wrong. There's absolutely no reasoning or logic I can apply to the non-evidence you have provided that would indicate that I'm wrong. And again, your own colleague, Professor Brozo, did an experiment that pretty much proves the case. So go ahead and explain why there wasn't any inertia, okay, that stopped the half mass from going twice the velocity. I don't even think you have the capacity to understand at this point. Your brain is like molasses. Yours is like dog shit. Okay. Wet dog shit. More lies and deception. How is my... Let's see. Now that Mindless Marvels and Brozo have disproven your claim, so that didn't happen. You changed the topic. That certainly hasn't happened. Shift to live video. So I already read this. And I've explained why. But anyway, so that's it. Just not a scientific, not a physics argument in any of this. Just all of this crap, and there's no physics here at all. Just again, crap. Alright, so we'll see if there's any commenting to be had. See what kind of audience there is, and that'll tell us whether it's worth the trouble. 3? Oh, 10. That should be enough to generate a comment, something. So we'll see. If nobody's going to be participating, then maybe I won't bother with the second video. But we'll see. I guess I can bring this. Yeah, I don't need that. Alright, just a little bit of bookkeeping here. Alright. So, we'll go to the other Inertia video. And it has to do with rolling crap. So, it's just making this, the point is there's not a single thing in this video that is at all inconsistent with a simple understanding that it's just about momentum. And if you're going to give something more momentum, if you're required to give it more momentum, you have to use some force to do that. And if the only force you have is gravity, so you have two objects that weigh the same, you know they're going to collect energy at the same rate, and you know one of them has to, function as if it has more momentum than the other. For them to do the same thing, one would have to absorb more energy than the other. Well, one of them can't absorb more energy because it's in the same gravity. So the fact is one of them is going to look like, it's got more energy because it's going to move faster, but it doesn't have more energy because guess what? The other object is in fact moving the same speed. It's just you have to look where the matter is. It has the same number, the same amount of atoms moving distance. It's just that the atoms are in different places, and because of that, it looks different.
We're going to look at a couple more demonstrations of rotational inertia. Now, to review, rotational inertia is the property of an object that deals with a resistance to a change in its state of rotational motion.
So again, there's no resistance. It's just it's the wrong way to say it. There's just no resistance. It's like saying a glass resists having water in it. No, you have to put the water in. If you don't put any water in, it doesn't go anywhere. If you put water in, okay, now it has water in it, okay? But you always, again, the idea is if you're going to see the energy, you have to give it enough energy to make the energy visible. And if it's a really, like me poking the earth, I could sit here and push on the earth. Push! There, I pushed on the earth. I'm not going to see the effect because I'm moving a preposterously giant thing, and so the preposterously giant thing is not impressed. But it is still a fact that I did impose a force.
We know that this depends upon the mass of the object and the way that mass is distributed from the axis of rotation. For the first demonstration,
that is its velocity. So again, it's this idea that it's something complicated, like the distribution has any other meaning than how fast will you have to move the atoms, and that will tell you how much energy it takes. And so obviously you put the atoms on the outside, they have to move faster, you need more energy to move the substance. Not complicated.
This has quite a bit of inertia because much of the mass is distributed far from the axis of rotation. We're going to put this in motion with a motor and let it spin while we're doing something else, and it will take some time to spin down because of its large inertia or rotational inertia. So I'll get this thing going. I'll let it spin up here for about 5 to 10 seconds. And I've turned the motor off now, and now it's just slowing down. Now it will slow down because there's frictions in the bearings, but it's going to take a while to do that because of its large rotational inertia. While that's happening, let's take a look at this demonstration right here. Here I've got two discs which have the same...
So this is the classic, okay, experiment, and it's just so obvious, right? Okay, so most of the atoms in one case will have to rotate fast, okay, to create one rotation. They'll have to go a fast velocity versus the matter in the other object, which is in the small, close to the fulcrum part, close to the center. They don't have to move very fast at all, so they have very little energy required. So the one piece has very little mass having to go fast and a lot of mass going slow, and the other example has no mass going slow and all of the masses going fast.
Radii. One of them is an aluminum ring, and the other is a piece of wood. Now, if these have the same mass, they have the same inertia, but they don't have the same...
They'll generate the same gravitational, they'll collect the same amount of energy from gravity, and therefore, okay, one of them, okay, will be delayed in rolling because it has to wait to get enough energy to move the mass, the required velocity. It has to wait for it.
Rotational inertia, because that mass is distributed in a different way. For this, the mass is distributed uniformly throughout. For the ring, the mass is all distributed far from where the axis of rotation will be, which is going to be...
So it has no resistance to moving. The simple truth is you have to move it faster per rotation. Therefore, a single rotation will equal more energy if it was at the same speed. But if I change the velocity, that is, I slow this down, then the momentums will be equal.
Right through the center. And so this will have a greater rotational inertia than this wooden disc. What we're going to have them do is race down this incline. And the one with the greater rotational inertia will lose the race because it will have a greater resistance to a change in its state of rotational motion. Now right now the state of rotational motion of both objects is 0. They're not rotating. Once I remove the piece of wood, one of them is going to rotate more quickly. Let's see which one that is.
Obvious. And the difference is just in the fact that it takes more energy. There's more energy being It requires more energy to move the atoms at the higher velocity, and it takes less energy to move the atoms at the slower velocity, and therefore this one has the rotational advantage. It will do more rotations in less time because there's less energy in each rotation. Okay. I think that's the best way to put it. Let's go ask the chat bot.
So the wooden disc rotated more quickly and won the race down the incline. That makes sense because we said that the metal ring had greater rotational inertia, so there's a greater resistance to a change in its state of motion.
So there's no resistance in its state of motion. It just requires you to put the force in. The force is gravity, and it's the same for both objects. So obviously the object that can push the matter easier, because it's a less velocity it has to push it at, that one's going to win, because you have to wait for more gravity to happen to move the one that has the matter in the higher momentum position.
It's going to have a smaller rotational acceleration as it goes down the plane. Let's take a look now at our disk. You can see that it's still turning. It's slowing down, and it's almost stopped by now. But if we could make the friction in the bearings much, much less, this could continue spinning for a long period of time. If we made this a very large metallic disk, we could store a large amount of energy, rotational energy, in that disk, and we could keep that energy stored for a long period of time.
So you really can't do any of that, right? So if you had some ideal circumstance, then you could store it for, blah, blah, blah. But yeah, we really can't do any of that, so it's always kind of a loss system. And flywheels are generally used just to balance energy. That is, to take the fluctuation. They're like capacitors. So they're, generally speaking, they're just used to even out the input energy and the output energy. So you can take an irregular input energy and turn it into a very regular output energy by using a heavy disk, a flywheel.
Such devices are called flywheels, and they are used exactly for that purpose, for energy storage.
Yeah, like I said, most of the time they're used for some other purpose, and they have teeth on them, and they're, they're basically just gears, but whatever, fine. Alright, so that's it. Alright, so now let's see. That's all I had planned for today. There is nothing else to really reference. Everybody else on the internet is quite boring and uninteresting. There was a comment, so I guess I might as well read that. So the Merker guy, he's just sort of new here, so I guess he doesn't know. Have you heard of this guy, Eric Dullard? He's anti-relativity. He's anti-rational. Okay, so there's, so being anti-relativity but pro-Tesla free energy is called nuts. Okay, they are stupid or retarded. And so he's all of those things. He's a primitive, so to speak. He thinks the ancient medicine men had all of the answers, sort of, kind of. Heaviside and whatever his other name, the other guy is, and well, anyway, and yes, they were good scientists, but they really didn't understand it better. So there's, but this whole idea that they're gonna do some sort of energy thing where they're gonna have this perfect efficiency of sending energy through the Earth. It's just so wacky. The whole Tesla theory was stupid. Yeah, I mean, we already know that the solar energy isn't even that much energy. I mean, Tesla was basically saying there was some sort of microwave background energy that's got this huge amount of energy in it. Clearly, it's not there. The sun only makes 1,000 watts per cubic yard. I mean, it's not very much energy, considering, and So yeah, I mean the whole theory is just stupid. You know. But anyway, I mean we know what the big stream of energy is. That's the water. That's the big one you can take advantage of. I mean there's a ton of tons of megatons worth of water that is through convection lifted up, and you can take advantage of when it falls down. That has so much more energy than any of these other sources. But anyway, whatever. Stupid crap. So that was disappointing, but I understand. Okay, he hasn't seen all of the videos I've done where I mentioned that Eric Dullard is an idiot. He said he's a free energy nut at heart, and even when he concedes that, well, yeah, maybe this isn't going to work, it's all this, it's all this like archaic radio crap. Like they're going to tap into all of this fun stuff by playing with old, 70-year-old radios. I mean, it's just too nutty. All right, anyway. So he certainly believes in waves, and he even he thinks of the whole universe like galaxies as musical notes. I mean, it's all wacky, silly mush. Yuck. All right, so enough of that. All right. I could mention Miles Mathis, but he hasn't done it. He's just obsessed with it. He gets these little obsessions. But it's all, I mean, it's sad, really. I read his pyramids and other things. I mean, and you're just saying, why even continue reading anything this guy says, because it's all so stupid. I mean, the whole ancient astronaut thing. I mean, I didn't think it was that stupid. I mean, he actually thinks the pyramids are some sort of high technology. Oh, Christ. That's just so stupid. It's desperation is all the pyramids are an example of. It's the people desperately trying to find some way to, create immortality. So they get a silly idea in their head, or somebody suggests it, and they all fall for it. It's just more examples of just how gullible human beings are. That whatever the voodoo doctor said, they fell for it. So, yes, it is morning. So somebody said morning. You can call live. I don't know what that means. You can call live. You mean call you? Yeah, I don't know what that means. You want me to call you? That might be tricky. I mean, I can do it. See previous message. There isn't a previous message. You have an email message, some other message. Where's the previous message? Okay, I'm confused now. I have 30 minutes. Okay. So you're saying call you on Skype. You have to explain what you're telling me, because I don't know what you're saying. Let's see. I have ball bearings set up in front of me. Yes. Oh, okay. So, all right. Well, we'll see if this works. I mean, it is a little bit challenging, but I'll see if I can get it to work. Competing cameras and all that kind of stuff. And, Skype's a little buggy and blah, 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 blah. But we'll see what happens. See if I can get Toadie's image up anyway. All right. So there we got it, and so I'll try calling, and then we'll see if I can add that to this thing. Yeah. Alright, so audio. I want a video call. Let's see what happens. I am calling you now. Yeah. That didn't work. Toadie isn't online. I have to call your phone, so I don't have your phone number. So you have to Skype me your phone number. And then I can call. Well, then if I call you that way, I don't think I can do video. Yeah, if I call your phone, I can't do video. So you have to be online. How could he not be online? Yeah, he's chatting. He's got to be online, right? I guess he could be chatting from his phone. So let's see. 1 mini yet. Okay. I'll wait a mini. Just downloaded update Skype. Okay. Yeah, well, I wouldn't update it. Updates are so dangerous. I'm fine. No rush. I have nicotine to enjoy, so I can just put my brain into a wonderful nicotine stupor. So it's good practice, because eventually I would like to, find a physicist who wants to talk about physics. But so far, no luck. I have Windows is a Windows 11. I'm still on 10. All right, let's see what we get here. See if I get a toady image I can use. Alright, I don't see you, and now I do. Okay, so that's cool. Now I have to just figure out how to get that into... Are you there, Toady? You want to say something just so I can... Oh yeah, I can hear you. Yeah, I can hear you because you were making noise. So yeah.
Just hang on. I'm just trying to...
It's okay. Take your time. I haven't...
Yeah, you know what these things are like, right?
Yes.
Hang on.
Technology.
Right, okay.
All right. Let me see if I can find you now on here. Skype 2. That might be you. Let's see if it's you. And then I sit there.
Let me. I'm gonna need to find a box or something. So just hang on. Bring this up a bit.
Okay, that's not you. Okay, so let's see. Gotta find the right you here. All right, so I want.
Oh, it's over here.
Image window composite. No, that's not it. Okay. What the hell? They changed the name of it.
I know, and they changed Skype, and I had to download a new version and all that kind of nonsense.
Yeah. All right. So
but you can hear me. That's good.
Yeah,
when
I can hear you
see
so
me,
far.
you get very excited. Hopefully.
I'm getting close. I think it just.
Yeah, it's not working like it should do, but anyway.
All right. Now that looks like you, right? But you're not in the right place. I can't move that.
Yeah, but you should be seeing what I'm looking at, not me.
Yeah, I know. It's just I am seeing it. I just give me a second to get it
All right,
on my.
Don't worry. I've got half an hour, and then I've got to do actual work.
Yeah,
so
no, I'm really close. it's in the wrong window. So
but I thought I'd just show you the progress that I'm making, right? Because I'm we're going to crack this right this year.
Yeah. All right, so that's in the wrong window, which is weird. So I have to change the properties and get rid of. What the hell's screwing up?
It's sad that we've only got like 2 viewers, but
Yeah, well, there'll be viewers later, so.
Oh well, okay, it works like that.
So that'll fix it. They can always watch it later. All right, so I can see most of it, I guess.
Can you? Yeah, don't worry about these. These are just. I'll explain what's going on in a sec. So all you need to see is you got it all. You got it all. It's all good. It's all good.
Yeah, it's on this. Most of it's on the screen.
Actually, I've made it worse.
Hang
on. Let me just correct that because I made it worse.
Okay.
I'm like run out of desk. This is the trouble. I've got this other stupid setup over here. Work stuff. Okay, hang on.
Yeah. Well, I can see now. You got the 3 heavy ones at the bottom and 2 lighter ones at the top, so we can see most.
We
of it.
don't want the lighter ones, right? Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, you can
so that's good.
You can see it.
Yeah, you can see most of it. I mean, I can't get rid of the stupid.
Can you see this marker here that I'm pointing at? You probably can't.
Not quite.
There we go.
I see it there. Now I see it. Yes.
Can you see this marker?
Yeah.
And you can see this marker here, yeah?
Right. Yep.
Where my finger pointing.
Yeah, I got
And this
him.
one?
Yep.
Okay, fantastic. Right. ignore these because these are out of the cradle. All
Right.
These are irrelevant, these two.
Okay.
I just don't want to like take the cradle apart. By the way, I've actually bought for the weekend when I have some more time. Can you see these?
Yeah, that's good size. Yeah,
Yeah,
they're
good
nice.
size. Like here, look. So compare them to here. Yeah, they're a little bit bigger and a bit heavier, right?
Yeah,
Okay. So they'll be even better when I get some drill some holes in them and have them on my single things. But I just want to work through the concept with you, so I'm not doing something completely daft, which I probably am, by the way. All right. So let's just go through the concept. By the way, that's why I bought this little cradle here, yeah, off Amazon for a couple of quid, just to run through the concept, right? Yeah. You still there?
Yep, you got it.
Okay. Great. Okay.
Ah, now it froze. Shit. Yeah, we were there and now reconnecting. Okay. This is a Skype problem. I
Screenshots,
guess.
yeah, because can you hear me?
Yeah, there was just a glitch in the download or whatever, so it fixed. So it's okay again.
All right, we're gonna end up with a problem of recording this because the problem is, well, you'll see what happens when I bang them together. By the way, it's very lossy. And this one, can you see there's two here?
Yeah, I can see they're stuck
See this?
together. Yep.
They're stuck together. So these are stuck together. This is one. Okay?
Right.
And by the way, this is pretty well stuck together. Okay, right. So if I do this, I'll just do a gentle one. Okay.
Yeah.
But it's pretty lossy, as you can see. I don't know why it's so lossy, but because normally these cradles work better. But whatever. Okay?
Yeah, well, the reason
Now-
why is because it's uneven. So that's why it's oscillating the whole thing. It's because it's not transferring all the energy, so it's re-hitting at the wrong positions. So it starts in the middle hitting, and then every other oscillation is way off the center. So,
Oh, what? Because the center of gravity is here, you mean?
yeah, well, they're both moving at a different speed. You're actually creating the speed problem. So one side takes longer to get to the center than the other side takes to get to the center, so they don't meet in the center anymore. So one of them's moving forward while the other one's moving backward, but they...
Yeah, now, all right. So we'll discuss that problem
Yeah.
in a sec. Let me just show you what I did first of all.
Right.
Okay. Because I was going to try and do the arc. So let's just use one rather than the center of gravity issue on this one. We'll deal with that later, right? Let's just use the one at the moment. Okay. Yep. Right. So I was trying to work out the length of arc, but then I realized, yeah, at the bottom of the swing, it's not giving it much energy anyway. So what I did, which could be incorrect, so we'll just go through the experiment, because, by the way, I want to obviously scale this up with the other balls that I've got and do it properly, but this is just so we can hash out some of the issues, right? Yeah. Okay. And hopefully this is useful to you, right? Okay.
Oh, I
so
like it.
on this one, this is 12 centimeters height. Yeah, height 12. Okay. This one is 3. Okay. So this one is 4 times as high as this one. Yeah.
Right.
Okay. Right. Height. Yeah. Not length of arc. Height. So if I take this one back to here. Right, I don't know. I just probably got the screen, but
Yeah, it's good.
yeah, trust me, I'm holding it in the right place. Yeah, and then I take this one to this height, okay, and I release them. We'll see what happens. Okay, you ready?
Yep.
Now you will have noticed, right, that this one bounced back. Not as high, but up to about here. Yeah, whereas this one probably hardly moved at all.
Right, but that's because you missed the center again. So see, this is what we need, the good photography or the video where we can slow
Yeah.
it down and all that stuff. So if you take a decent video clip, maybe we can get it
Yeah.
so you can see that. But what's happening is the one you're dropping from 4 times the height takes twice as long to get to the bottom. It takes
Right.
twice
This
as
one's
long.
getting here
Right,
faster,
right,
is it?
right, and it's going further, right? So it's going past center.
Right.
And when it
Okay,
hits
so
the
something
second
like
one.
this. I'll do it slowly.
Right.
So I won't release it. I'll just do it slowly, right? So
Right.
this one is going like this. This one's going like this. This one's going like this.
Right. So right, they're
So it's
meeting.
actually meeting about here or
Right,
something.
right, and they have completely
Hence this
different.
one bouncing back so much. Ah, okay.
So it
how do we
doesn't.
deal with that?
So you have to release the double one after the 12 centimeter one travels 1/4 of the distance. So
this
you
one I
lift
need
it
to release.
right. You release the double one after half the
Okay.
time, which is 1/4 of the distance. Half
Okay,
the
I'll tell
time.
you that in a sec. What are we expecting to see, though? What would prove one thing or the other? Just so
Well,
I've got that in
what
my
you
head
would
as well.
see is that the energy, just like a regular Newton's cradle, will be completely transferred between the two objects, and they'll go back to their almost original condition. So the double mass will almost go back to the 4 tape. I mean, the tape you have there, and the single
Bit like
mass
this or something,
will.
yeah?
Yes, that's what you will expect. So you'll have a complete even transfer. All the energy will be conserved, all the momentum, and it will end up being exactly the same end result, which means it couldn't be kinetic energy because obviously you didn't transfer the kinetic energy, you transferred the
Right.
momentum.
But if this one had more, the little one actually had a lot more energy, what you'd expect
Is it to plow right through the double? It should move the center of the explosion forwards. So, the light one should keep going. It shouldn't stop in the center. It should keep going because
exactly.
it has twice
go
the
somewhat like
energy.
here.
It has It has
somewhat.
twice the energy.
Okay, so let's try that. Yeah, because it should have twice the energy, right? Because I've taken it up to 4 times the height. Yeah.
Right, but you can't make them hit at the right time unless you can let go of that double one.
Well, we'll try.
Go ahead and
I'll
try. Yeah.
Yeah, we'll have a go, right?
Yeah.
I need a proper timing device, as
Right,
you say.
and a proper
Probably
camera.
based with a micro controller, we're like breaking a beam or something, yeah?
Yeah, there
Anyway,
might be
I'll
a
try it. Here we
mechanical
go,
way to
Regulus.
do it.
You ready?
Yep.
Okay, here we go.
Yeah,
Now, I definitely released that one behind that one, and there's no way it plowed through.
you're right. Yeah, it didn't plow through. So yeah, the question is just, did you get all the energy in again? I have to see how
I
high
can
the
see it's
small
gonna be
one
difficult.
goes
There's no
up.
way you can do it manually, is there, right? So I'm going to try again. Just let's have this one up here. Yeah, it is. This one's here. Yeah. Okay, I'm trying to be fair with the heights.
So it bounced
Yeah.
pretty high, but yeah, I can't see enough to be able to tell. It's so
I know.
fast.
So I could get my high-speed camera and probably film it, but
Yeah,
we need
And
to
you could
work out
also,
where-
if I mean, I don't want to, discount the rack that you have, but if you make the pendulum strings longer, okay,
Yeah.
you can slow the whole experiment down. Yes, you'll have to take up a lot more space, but you can actually move it 12 feet. You know what I mean? Instead of 12 inches, you could move it 12 feet, and it would be a lot easier to control because everything would be moving so much slower.
Right. So ideally, right, because this is why I want to, this is why I wanted to just do this like sort of spitball session,
Right.
so that we can, hash out some of these issues, right? So ideally, this double one would just be on a single, central kind of string.
I don't think it would matter, but yeah, ideally it would.
Yeah, because I think that makes it, purer, doesn't it? Right? Yeah.
Well,
And I
really,
think
it just has to do
typical-
with the energy being able to stay in the object. So I don't know. Like I said, I don't know if that's critical. I'll just say that I don't think it might be worth just having it connect to the same location. So instead of having both of the strings connect at the top, have them both connect at the top at one point. You see where the strings are coming straight down. Have the strings go to one point. Okay, so the hanging position would be 1 point for the double mass. You could have both strings, but it would tie to 1 point
Oh, I see. They
on
both
the bar.
go together, right? So you can
Right.
have 2 strings, but
Right.
they come together to the same point. Yeah, that
Right.
would be better, wouldn't it? Because then it would swing at more of the same
Right,
arc. 'Cause
exactly.
at the moment, it's doing this odd kind of, what
Yeah,
I mean?
exactly.
See,
It's pulling on it a little bit, so you get rid
it's
of that
pulling
pull.
a bit, yeah. So it's changing where the force is a bit. Yeah.
Right. So if
Yeah.
you go to 1 point, then you'll eliminate that. You'll only have one fulcrum then.
Yeah. So these need to be joined together. Okay. Which I'll do on the main one when I make the main one,
Yeah.
because this is quite a nice toy actually. Okay, and so this one, and it's the height I want to go to. Longer strings slows it down, so that's good. But what I still don't understand is, so this should be in our theory, this should be the same energy, but in the classical world, how much more should this be? Twice the energy.
Twice as much, so it should really plow through the double.
It's half the mass, yeah, but we're taking it up 4 times the height.
Right. And the 4 times the height essentially means, for their perception, that's the increase. The 4 times the height means that's the 4 times the energy part, because you've now squared the velocity. It's twice the velocity, but it's the
It's
velocity
twice the
squared.
velocity. That's right. It's twice the velocity because I did work that bit out. Right. It's definitely twice the velocity. Oh, I see. But when you convert that, you're squaring it.
Yeah.
So, of course,
So when you
twice the
square
velocity.
that, it becomes 4 times the energy.
4 times.
Because
Yeah. Okay. Got that. Yep. So because it should be going twice the velocity. Right. Okay. So really, it should plow through it because it should have. Yes. Should have quite a bit more energy.
right.
So I wonder why it isn't.
Well, because there is no kinetic energy, that's why it isn't. But yeah.
Yeah, but I'm you know, yeah. I mean, it's an experiment that's probably doable then, right? As long as this is released, because you're right about the meeting in the middle as well. Yeah, this one takes longer, doesn't it?
Well, you want to get them at peak velocity. So at peak velocity, it's the center. So anything off the center means they're not at their peak velocities.
So if we just took this out of it at the moment, right? Peak
Yeah.
velocity for this from this height, yeah, would be here,
Dead center. Right.
dead center. Yeah, exactly at this point. the one I
Right.
marked.
Right.
Yeah.
Anything further up is slower.
Yeah. Oh yeah, because of course it's slowing if it starts to go this way.
Right.
Yeah.
So it only has
So
that.
I just think visually with people, it's just nicer. You know, some people like me are quite visual, right? I see. So this side, it's all speeding up. It's being dragged down. It's at peak here. Oh, and now it's starting to slow. Okay, got that. All right. Yep, completely get that. And then obviously that's the same on the other side. So really, I want them to meet exactly where they're hanging here, right? I want the impact point to be exactly here. With them
Right.
both coming together like this, yeah?
Right.
Yeah, right. So any other side, then this one's still going a bit faster and this one's already starting to slow. So that's a problem. So they really need to meet here.
Yeah, the center is where you always want the impact to happen. But like I said, after the first impact, there's nothing you can do because they're still going to be moving the wrong. One of them is going to take twice as long to do its arc than the other one, so they'll never meet in the center again. So it's really a one-time experiment.
Yeah, it's a one-hit deal.
Yeah, exactly. You're not going to get a second chance because the second chance will be a completely different energy because one of them will be moving into the gravity and slowing down, and the other one hasn't even sped up yet.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I've got my video here, okay, and I've got it set up centrally. Now, how do I need something to mark this center point, don't I? Just so we know where the center is. And then I'm just going to video it just to see how close, you know what I mean?
Well, yeah,
Just
you can see how much of it you can get, and then you'll see how good the frame quality is too, because you can always slow the video down later and see if
Yeah, I'll show you guys as well, just out of interest. Right, I don't know
Yeah.
if you can see that. Can you see?
Yeah, I can see
Yeah,
it. It's
You can see the mark. So I've
Yeah.
now put a mark center, right? The mark is the edge this side, right?
Right.
Yep. I'll just draw on it just so we know where the line is. So I'll see how close I can get to the central point, yeah? With dropping it. So how much do I need to drop it late than the other one?
yeah, it's 1/4 of the distance or half the time. So it's just after the high one drops 1/4 of its distance.
Yeah, then release this one. So
Right.
when this one's dropped to here, I release this one. Okay. Okay. And we'll slow the video down as well. So I'll do the video. Okay. Let's just see where we get to. By the way, keep an eye on the time because otherwise I'll miss an important meeting. So I'll get into trouble.
Well, you'll have to ask somebody else to do that.
Yeah, exactly. Right.
Clock?
Okay.
What's a clock?
Yeah, exactly. You're not going to look at the clock. You're going to get so excited. Right. Okay. Here we go. Okay. We're ready. Here we go.
That was close, I think.
That was close. I reckon that was pretty close, right?
Yeah, it looked good to me.
Yeah, it looked pretty good. Right. So, how do we see the screen? Like this. Okay. Yeah. So what I'll do is I'll go to that video, and then I'll get it to the where it hit, slow it down, and then I'll show you guys.
Yeah.
Yeah. You see, I think this is definitely this proof of concept. Oh, we're very close. Hang on. How do I pause it? Stupid thing. How do I pause it? Hang on, they're coming in. Okay. How do I get you guys to see it?
Yeah,
so
just
that
put
I
it.
can still see
Yeah,
it.
you can just stick it in front of the camera, I think, and it'll be okay. Yeah, I can see it. You just got to move it over.
Yeah?
Yeah, just change this there. That's almost now. Move it to the right a little. There you go.
This way?
Oh, the other way. Sorry, my left, your
This
right.
way?
There. Yeah, that's it. That's it.
Okay, now I need to just do the... Hang on. Yeah, right. So which way is that going? Hang on, let me find the
That's
place
going
first.
forward. Yeah, you need to go
just
back.
give me a sec.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, look, that's excellent. Wow. Okay, look. Okay. Look at that.
Yeah.
I don't know if you guys can see that.
Yeah, that's really good. Yeah, I can see it.
Can you see? Look, that's
Yeah.
really not bad, is it?
Yeah, so you just need to go back a few frames and to see where, how far it goes in. Well, you really can't see the whole thing in that frame, but
no.
yeah,
So
but
look,
you
here
can
we go.
see,
Look,
you
yeah,
can see how far they both went, but you can certainly see that the one mass did not
See that?
push.
Look.
The one
Yeah,
mass,
see that?
the one mass did not push the two mass. So this is the 10-ton train going one way, the 5-ton train coming the other way. If the 5-ton train had twice the energy, it should be plowing the explosion towards the 10-ton train. Obviously, the 10-ton train goes right back.
Can you see? Look. So here we go. Right, they're coming in. They're not contacted yet. Okay.
Right,
Can you
it's
see
a
my-
perfect conversion of the energy. You can see they
Yeah,
both
right. There we go.
leave.
Look, they're hitting
They
pretty
both
centrally.
Right, they both leave from that central location.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
So
so
now I'm going one
perfect.
frame forward. Now they're leaving. Can
Yeah,
you see?
yeah, it's perfect.
And now obviously they're coming back together. Now they're meeting in a different place, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, look. So we get all that. Pretty interesting, right?
Pretty close. I mean, it's a little bit more lossy just because it bounced a little bit, a couple of little flaws. But like I said, with the heavier balls,
Yeah,
that should
probably this frame. I mean, obviously, right? For something that I've just knocked up quickly, yeah, it's I think it's interesting, certainly. Yeah, I would go as far as interesting, right? There's
yeah.
no way.
Well, I'm willing to sign a document that you deserve a gold star just for pulling this off in this video live. So that was really good.
Yeah, I'm amazing work
You
that I
did.
released it. You know what I mean? I must have pretty good reactions, I reckon, to release it.
Yeah, you did. You did really well.
I think what it tells me is there's no way that that's playing through. So sure, I maybe released it a little bit late. Maybe it, on that marker, right? Maybe it, what I mean, was a little bit forward, a little bit back, whichever way. Probably if you did it 10 or 20 times, right, you'd get some that were really good, especially if I filmed it with a high-speed camera.
Right, and if we found any other objects and we took one that had twice the momentum and plowed it into something with half the momentum, there's no way the collision wouldn't move. You know what I mean? That there would be clear evidence of the one winning the tug of war, and there was no evidence of that victory.
Yeah, there was no evidence of the tug of war. They both went backwards,
right?
But they didn't. It wasn't like this one plowed through.
Exactly, and it will
it
in
wasn't
every
like a hit like this.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Right. They're coming together. What would we expect if this had twice? Yeah, they'd come together like this, and this would hit this, bang, transferring it. This one's got a lot more, so this would go up and this would go back like this.
Yeah, it'd be like a garbage truck hitting, Tesla. You know what I'm saying? I mean, the garbage truck should win. The thing with more momentum should win and push the collision forward. And it didn't happen. The thing with more momentum didn't push the collision.
Yeah,
It's like even when you're hit with a bullet, you know what I mean? You don't fly backwards, but clearly you absorb the momentum. The bullet wins, and you move with the bullet.
It'd be nice to see how far this did go. You know what I mean, right?
Well, you could see that both of them went about half the height that they started from, so it lost, half the energy.
It's very lossy. It's a lot more lossy than I expected. Like, by the way, what really surprises me is if this one had twice, right? Surely this one should go back almost higher.
No, it won't go back higher because it's twice the mass.
Oh, it's twice the mass.
Yeah,
right.
yeah, so it can't.
Oh, yeah, of course. Right,
it can only go back to its original height at
Right,
best.
so if I did one-on-one, I did one with twice the velocity.
Right.
Yeah. In fact, let's do that. Because that's like, so let's do that, actually, just out of interest, right? So I'll put this over the back. Yeah. Okay, so we'll do that, actually, yeah? So I'll do the same heights, right, but with the same mass, yeah?
Yeah, well, that's just a Newton's cradle, but yes, it'll
Oh,
fly.
is that just Newton?
Yeah, that's
Newton?
just a complete. One will take the energy. Oh, you're going to crash them into each other. Now they should both come back to where they started.
Pretty much. Okay,
Right.
ready? Here we go.
Yeah, so they did okay.
Oh wait, this one went really high.
Yeah, well, I guess they didn't hit exactly in the middle, so you probably did release them imperfectly.
Really? Okay, well, we'll try again. This is interesting. Okay, so this one's 4. This one's higher again, yeah? Just so you know. I'm
Right.
doing this one here and this one here, all right? Okay, I'll try and do the middle. Watch the one on the left, because I think it's going a lot higher. There's a lot more transference to it. Okay, here we go. See?
Yeah, well, you had one of them at twice the height, you said?
Yeah, so this one...
Oh, okay,
was
I got you. All right, yeah, yes, exactly. It should go higher.
This one was 4 times this one, and this one almost went back to that same height up here. Did you see that?
Yeah,
I'll do it again.
yeah, no, it went past, and it should.
Yeah, 'cause look, Newton's cradle is just... let's try that. Yeah, just... Oh, sorry.
Well, Newton's cradle is just dropping
like
one.
that. Right,
Yeah,
that's
right,
even.
right.
Yeah, that's
Exactly.
just even, right? That's like we know that. No, I was trying it with a higher velocity, and it seemed to transfer a lot and push this one right back up here.
Right, exactly.
So this one went higher than where it started from. Just to be clear, what I'm saying.
Yeah,
This
well,
one?
they just exchange. The idea is not to think that they're reflecting. The idea is to think the energy goes from the one object into the other. So whatever one has, it gives to the other. The other
that's
one
exactly
gives what it
looked like.
has.
It looked like this one went as high as this side. And
Right,
this one
exactly.
Went up here.
Exactly what it should do. Yes.
Okay, so that is working. So then, okay, all right, okay, so that one went. All right, let's stick them back together again. Okay, you know, it could be a bit lossy here. By the way, I am not saying that this is a perfect experiment, right? So no one start, writing terribly and typing in.
Yeah, no, this isn't the final. This is just playing around, right?
We're just playing around. We're just
Right.
trying to, see what happens. Just, exactly. This is not final of anything. This is just me dicking around, just trying to write. This one, we'll try again. Yeah, I'll try and do an even. Hang on, I'll get it on film again because I won't have time later. I've got 10 minutes left, so I will have to love you and leave you in a bit. But
Yeah, no, it's great. Like I said, this worked better than I thought it would. So very
much
good.
better than I thought it would as well, right? Yeah, because I thought it was going to be like, yeah, we've got the central thing there. Okay, let's take 2. See if I can release them as good as before. I'm getting quite excited now, Gary, right? Because I kind of feel, this is a step in the right direction. Okay.
Yeah, you're
So
fair.
this one, I need to release the other one when it's a
One
of the way
quarter.
down.
Yeah, 1/4. Yeah, that looked okay, but yeah, it lost
Yeah.
a lot. It does lose quite a
Loss,
bit.
yeah, this is the problem. It is very lossy, but okay. So where we go? Here we go. Right. Okay. Sorry,
You might have to
Sam, you
use
go.
some kind of more rigid glue. When you're attaching the
Oh
two.
yeah. I will glue
Yeah.
them together, but I've only just got it this morning from Amazon.
Right.
Right. I'm just dicking around. Yeah. I don't. Can you see it? Yeah. Here we go.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks good again. You did well.
No, it was a bit forward, wasn't it?
Well, not on the
see?
first hit. You have to get to the first hit.
Oh, hang on. Okay. All right. Okay. Can we see where's that central marker?
Yeah, you're a little forward.
I'm a little forward on that one.
Yeah.
It wasn't as good as the first one,
Yeah.
was it? Look, the 2-ton train is slightly ahead there. See?
Yeah. Yeah, so
And then it
you
bounces back.
yeah. But it's still a good example of the fact that the one mass certainly didn't win. The two mass certainly didn't lose that battle.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It didn't lose it, did it? Let's do the other one again, just so people can see it before I go. Here we go. I'm going for it slowly now. Oh, it's so fast when you... Oh. There. So
Oh
that's
yeah,
much
I mean
better.
that was just so perfect.
That was
yeah,
perfect.
That
First
really
time,
was good. Yeah,
Like beginner's luck. They call
Yeah.
that. Look at that. That's like just I almost wasn't thinking about it. Whereas the second time I did it, I was like trying to deliberately delay it a bit.
yeah. Well,
It just shows, you know what I mean, like your
yeah,
human.
you can't use your brain on purpose.
Yeah, exactly. The first time it just kind of almost fluked it. I wasn't even trying, right? So yeah. Well, it's been great having a chat. I'm going to have to go and actually do some paid work.
Yeah.
But right, this gives me great. By the way, anyone who wants to try their own setup, right? These are like I don't know, $10 on Amazon. Yeah, and it's the big size, by the way. The one I bought. This is called the big size Newton's cradle. Oh my God! Look, I've got a breakage. Damn! Look at that.
Yeah, well, you have to buy some fishing line.
I have to buy some fishing line and wrap it up here. Yeah, but
You know,
anyway.
the thinner the better, and all of that kind of crap. And like I said, the
yeah.
longer
Yeah.
you can make the pendulum,
Yeah, and this one joining here in the same middle, so I'm going to have to get myself some fishing line. Yeah, interesting. They glue it here. They don't have it free running.
oh,
Yeah.
that's kind of a weird thing. Yeah, I
Yeah,
mean,
that is a weird thing, isn't it? But maybe they don't want it sliding sideways.
Well,
So anyway,
really,
I can-
it really you're better off with it sliding sideways than you are it being stuck to one side, because it'll actually cause more sideways
it would
motion.
cause more sideways.
Yeah, I don't
yeah,
know.
exactly.
They
Yeah,
might do it
exactly.
to
It'll go like
stop.
that.
They might do it to stop it from tangling. You know, they can tend to tangle if
Yeah,
they
when
slide.
they all tangle up.
So-
yeah, they don't want them going like that.
Yeah. So that's why they glued him.
Anyway, it's fine. I can fix it, right? You know,
Yeah.
I'm pretty good with I'm pretty handy with that kind of thing. So, yeah, I'll sort it out. Don't worry. You know.
All right.
In fact, probably, you know, I can remove these. Anyway, I'll let you go. But at least you got a little bit of evidence right now.
Yeah.
You know, and as I say, I think you should persevere, right? And you buy your own ball bearings and stuff.
I
right?
know I should, but it's
Look, you could do this on your kitchen table where you.
Well, I know, but what I'm just telling you is that ideally I do it from the ceiling. So I'm just saying, ideally I want to make it bigger.
From the ceiling. Oh, right, yeah.
Bigger and better.
I'm from the ceiling, but
Yeah.
all I'm saying is, right? Yeah, like you know, you could. You know, this is evidence, right? If you did it 20 times, you'd get a few times perfect, like I had it, right? And you know, I think it's, you know, they're going to criticize it, but let's see, right? You know, publish it, push it, Gary, and let's see how they criticize this, right?
Yeah, well, that's the thing. Okay, I get it. Okay.
You get it. All right, I'll leave it to
okay.
you. You know what you're doing. Right? I'll catch you later. Right,
Okay.
bye.
All right, really good talk. Thanks. So that worked out quite well. I believe it did anyway. So it looked good from where I'm sitting. So let's see if there's any other comments. All right, so we connected. Still haven't uploaded. Okay, yeah, I haven't done that either. Hello there. I'm glad. I'll grab myself some coffee. Okay, awesome. I like these visual demonstrations. I like physical examples because it's very easy to understand. Yeah, well, that's the problem, though. But, you know, physical examples should come with what me and Tody are doing, which is actually talking about the dynamics and why you should expect a certain outcome. And that's not what you get from the opposition. They just do a gimmick, and then they don't explain to you why their gimmick is significant. You know, they just say F equals MA or something stupid. You know, that's part of part of presenting an experiment is not just presenting it, but explaining what you're doing, why you're doing it, what it proves, why it's inconsistent or consistent with every other experiment. And that's sort of the point, is that you're not going to find another momentum exchange in the real world where the Tesla hits the ice cream truck and pushes it. Now the Tesla has to be going and to have more momentum, right? And so whoever has more momentum wins the crash and moves the crash in a direction. The crash stays where it is if the two objects have the same momentum. Then the crash happens. But you know, when a car accident happens, the car accident often moves. That is, it hits at one place and the cars end up going in a direction. Well, if one car has twice the momentum, you know, twice the energy, it has to push the crash somewhere. It can't not push it somewhere. So you can't say it has twice the energy and then say, but that energy is so useless that it doesn't move the crash. Because we know momentum will move the crash. Now, obviously, in this case, we're saying these things have the same momentum. And so the kinetic energy, if it exists, it should show itself in the fact that the extra energy should have a consequence. And if it has no consequence, then why do you believe in it? If it doesn't do anything to change the pure momentum of the circumstance, I mean, the momentum works perfectly, how can you say the kinetic energy was there, it just doesn't show itself? You've done everything you can to take the energy from one object and actually put it into the other object. I guess that's the more poignant point, is that the Newton's cradle is exchanging the energy. The energy moves from one object into the other object. So you have two objects coming in. The energy from this one ends up in this one, and the energy from this one ends up in this one. So if this one has twice as much energy, then this one should have twice as much, and it won't. It'll have the same it went in with. Clearly indicating yeah, that it didn't transfer the energy. And in all the other cases, there is a transfer. You can see that the energy does transfer. So you can't pretend that it reflected in your special case. And in all the other cases, it's transferring. And in your special case, it just happens that it reflects for no apparent reason. So, but yeah, it's great to have another contributor. And it's not great that he's going to force me to do this shit. I don't want to do experiments. I don't want to do experiments. But we'll see. Uh-oh, how come this... Oh, okay, it's alright. I thought the stream was dead, but it's so laggy. It's just the lag. Okay. Alright, let's see if we have any more comments. No, it's kind of surprising. What number are we at? 14. Yeah, 14 people should be able to do better than this. No, anyway, so it was a good video, though. So I'll enjoy watching the repeat. The replay. Must be, he must have like an iPhone or something, because that was pretty good to get those frame by frame, you know, on a whatever it was, tablet like thing, phone thing. And to do it pretty fast too. I can't even get my computer to do it sometimes. So he did throw in those extra experiments at the end, you know, where he kind of showed that the energy does transfer. You know, like when he lifted the one side higher and then dropped it and the other side went higher, sort of indicating that the energy does move from one object to the other. And that sort of displays the fact that the double mass doesn't go away with any extra energy. You know, indicates that it didn't collect any extra energy from the object that's supposed to have twice as much. I have to think of a kinetic energy, a purely kinetic energy example. But yeah, you can't think of any examples because it doesn't exist. There is no kinetic energy example to compare anything to because there is no kinetic energy by the formula. It's all just talk. Alright, let's see, what time am I at? An hour and 38. It's getting there. Alright, so maybe I'll call it a video. And, oh, there's Tim. Should the 1x and 4x height be measured with reference to where the balls hang freely? Well, he did the height from the ground, I think. I guess it should, yeah, technically it should. So that's something else to consider. So I'll make sure to point that out to Toady. Well, he'll probably might see this video, and so he'll see that. But yeah, the height should be from the point that the balls hang at. Should be how you measure the height, because it would make a difference. I mean, you're hurting the slower object more, the heavier object more, by measuring from the ground. So that would help make the double mass have a little more energy, because it was shorted a little bit. That might explain why it didn't bounce quite as far as I expected it to. I mean, there was a little less energy in the collision than I thought would be realized, so that might be the reason why. It was a little short of the, like I said, especially for the double mass. The double mass should have been higher. Oh, good point. See, smart people showing up today. Yeah, it's really, see, that's what you're supposed to do, is think about it and find those little places where there's some place where something got loose and something got away from us. The other thing is, has to try to keep the balls as tight as possible, you know, so the strings are even and tight, so they fall, you know, without any bounce. Now we'll see if there's anything else. Yeah, there'll be so many ways people can convert this. I'm just trying to think of how they're going to weasel out of it, in the sense that they'll, it really has to, if they're going to say something has twice the energy, how could it possibly make sense that the collision doesn't move with the more energy, the side that has more energy? I'm sure the guys are right about the 4x height is twice the velocity, but how to confirm the velocity to the critics? Well, the critics don't deny that free-falling objects, technically falling objects, that the fact that the velocity is only doubled, so they acknowledge that. But again, they're saying the velocity is squared, so it's not like they're not arguing that it's not going twice the velocity. They're arguing that twice the velocity means 4 times the energy. And that's the part that's just weird, because there's no evidence that it has 4 times the energy. And in this case, it would be twice the energy, because the mass is half the mass. But there's clearly no evidence of the twice the energy part. There's no, you know. So, I mean, the simple argument is, if I collide two things, one thing has twice the energy of the other thing, is there any way you can make an excuse for why the thing with twice the energy wouldn't move the collision in its direction? That it would force the other object to move forward. Because if I did it in space, they would. Let me think. I'm saying they won't do it in space either, because space is it's momentum. So again, I'm still stuck with that same. I have to think through that one too. I mean, you just can't, how do you find this extra energy? Got it. So the lateral movement in this setup makes no difference to the velocity from the free-falling object. Yeah, the difference is it takes, it's the time thing. It takes longer, but I mean, it's not, that's the good thing about using a pendulum, is you're not losing much time because there's so little friction. So you're really not stealing any of the what's the right way to say it? I mean, you clearly are. It's a longer distance. It's like, falling this way, it's a lot farther than falling this way. So it's obviously taking longer to get there. So all you're doing is slowing it down. I guess that's the advantage of it, is that you're slowing the experiment down. That's why I'm suggesting longer pendulums, because the longer you make them, then the slower the whole thing happens, and the more you can see it. I mean, the final velocity doesn't change, but what changes is how long it takes to accelerate the object. I guess that's the way to say it. You're accelerating it slower over a longer distance, but your final velocity will be the same. So the idea is you're taking a final velocity going this way and you're converting it into a final velocity this way. So the final velocity this way will equal the final velocity that you would have had if you just dropped it straight down. Yeah, it's just irritating that, this is the difficulty of proving the non-existence of Jesus, is that they can, they can just make up any catches, for why, my proof isn't a proof. But you're really saying that, this, if there is twice the energy, it has to be able to show itself somewhere. And it's clearly not showing itself in that experiment. Yeah, no, the tension doesn't really hurt you because that's part of where you're giving away the extra gravity. See, obviously, if it's taking you longer to fall, you're in the gravity longer, so you're actually collecting more gravity, but you're losing that gravity to the friction and the tension in the wire. So that's the catch, is that you're actually giving away the extra gravity you're collecting because you're in the gravity longer, because you're swinging on an arc and accelerating slower. So it's sort of the rolling argument. When you're rolling the things down the ramp, you're also creating angular momentum, rotational momentum. So, and you're also heating the ramp. So there's a lot of other energy in the system that wouldn't be there if you dropped it straight down. And it just works out that the way gravity works is that it ends up, that friction is completely proportional to the length of time you're in contact with something, and so the contact friction just takes the extra energy. It doesn't take the elemental gravitational force of falling. So it all evens out in the end. Is there an example of kinetic energy through an experiment? That's the whole point, is that for 2 years we've been looking for an experiment and there isn't any. I have no idea how it would even look as an experiment. It would look like it lights twice as many light bulbs. Say if a 5-ton train going 10 miles an hour has twice the energy, then if you put a generator on the wheel, it should generate twice as much electricity. These are the arguments being made, is that no, that evidence doesn't exist. They can't show you it taking 4 times the fuel to going twice as fast, because it doesn't take 4 times the fuel to go twice as fast. The point is they haven't produced any evidence of the existence of this energy, in the sense that they do not show the energy producing any real manifestation of energy. That is, anything besides a ball rolling 4 times the distance on a surface. And you can explain why it rolls 4 times the distance, is because the friction isn't even. Yeah, well, they won't explain how it works, because they can't explain how it works, because it doesn't in fact work. All they have is dropping round things into clay, and I've explained how that's a failure, right? Because the round thing has surfaces pointing in different directions. The sides of the round thing are pointing that way, and the bottom is pointing down. So obviously if it just penetrates barely into the clay, it's mostly pushing the clay down, and the deeper it goes, the more it's pushing sideways. And so obviously there's an advantage in the beginning to an object that goes, halfway into the clay versus something that barely goes into the clay. It means that the one object was pushing the clay sideways, and the other object was mostly pushing clay down. And clearly you can understand why down would have back pressure, whereas sideways wouldn't have any back pressure. And then the rolling thing. So all they have is clay and rolling things. And every other experiment doesn't show kinetic energy at all. But I'm just saying, logically, if you're going to say something has twice the energy and you collide it, why wouldn't it push the collision in the direction of the extra energy? Well, I don't mind trying to explain how their theory works, frankly, if I could. But yes, I can't explain how it works, because to me it's completely fictitious. I can't see how it can possibly work. I can't understand how velocity could have extra dimensions. So how could you possibly square it? It can only have one dimension. Velocity is only in one dimension. I don't know any of the details, but supposedly Joule, now Joule didn't do anything with kinetic energy, but anyway, showed something about to have to do 4 times the work to raise the temperature 2x. Yeah, he was dropping things in gravity. So again, it's the same exact argument. He's going by the distance it falls in gravity, okay, and connecting that to the heat created. So he's using the 4x, the distance again. So it's the same argument about 4x the distance only gets you 2x the velocity. So it's only twice the momentum. You get it? I mean, you're not getting 4 times the velocity, so you can't say it's twice the momentum. So the flaw in Joules' experiments. Actually, Joules' experiments prove momentum correct, because obviously we know 4 times the distance is only twice the velocity. So it just depends on what math you use. So if you evade using the velocity directly and you use the distance in the equation, the distance is a 4, the velocity is a 2. So you can sort of understand, if you use the 2 in the equation, you'll get a different answer than if you use the 4 in the equation. Yeah, it's unfortunate, just because Joule did believe in kinetic energy, the living force, as it was called. He actually called it the living force. But he believed in wave theory. He believed in a lot of things that are, wrong. But I'm just saying he proved the clear correlation, okay, between work and heat, which was the important one, where you could convert all of the work into heat, demonstrating, in my opinion, the thing they should have taken away from Joule was the fact that heat isn't incidental, heat isn't a byproduct, heat is a portion of the work. So part of every time you heat something, it's work to heat something, and they won't. That's what their physics won't say, that creating heat is work. That is work. That's part of the work. So in some things where you're creating heat, those are losses of your total energy. They almost think heat is some separate thing that happens separately. You have to have energy to make heat. You can't make heat without applying energy. It's a derivative of energy. It's a portion of the energy. So when you transfer heat, you're transferring energy. Heat is energy. I mean, it's all the same thing. Pressure is energy. Weight is energy. It's all energy. It's all the same stuff. It's all matter moving. It's all mass moving. That's how you see energy. Free energy you can't see. You can't see a photon while it's flying through space. You see it when it hits something. That's when you know it exists. None of the energy in the universe exists until technically it hits something, okay? I mean, that's when you know it's energy. Otherwise, it's benign. It's only real to us. But every time it does move something, it's work. So, alright, so I think I'll call it an evening, a morning. It does feel later than it is. But anyway, yes, have to get on with the day and blah, 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 blah. So, interesting morning. I'll say that much, and we'll see what kind of thought it provokes and such, reaction and whatnot. So, till the next time, let's see, what button will I press? I guess I'll hit this one. Alright. So, yeah, that's the end. Yeah, the end of the video. Dun, 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 dun. Dun, 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 dun. Some farewell music.